Hi, this is Jack Allen Willard. Our video, The Verdict, is Bob Joyce Elvis. This is a new and improved version of a video we did just a few days ago. I want it to be more concise. Don't want to ramble about other things. This is all meat and potatoes, all about Bob Joyce and the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. There's a few new things, a few new questions, because we're going to deal with your questions and your comments from the various videos. Still up, the 21 coincidences why Bob Joyce may be Elvis. The Bob Joyce Elvis factor from 2019. These videos still get a lot of hits. We have a video asking and talking about, was Elvis inspired to fake his death? Check that video out. Has some music on it and getting hits. Yes, it is. Was he inspired to fake his death by someone else? Who is that person? We talk about it in that video. Going on hiatus soon after I tape this video is the most successful video we have ever done here at the virtual church of the disillusioned. It's the Bob Joyce Elvis evidence video. Going towards 32,000 views right now. 32,000 views. It is the video that got me way over. It got me to 1,000 subscribers, and then now we're up to, we're going towards 1,500 subscribers, and I thank you very much for that. It's so helpful when you click the subscribe button. I appreciate that very much, and remember, you can always pause the video. We're going to do this in rapid fire. The Bob Joyce Elvis evidence in rapid fire was the video that's going down for a while this morning. In this video will try to be concise and do things in rapid fire, but still give you all the information we can, because everybody loves this topic. And I thank you for those almost 32,000 views from Bob Joyce Elvis evidence. Tell your friends about the video. Keep commenting, and I love your questions as well. Just ask that you be respectful. Please don't come on here to put Bob Joyce down. He's a wonderful man of God, and I don't mind disagreement, but keep it respectful, okay? We can't keep them up if you don't. So in this video, in this new and improved version of The Verdict, I will be answering your questions and commenting on your comments. There's a few new ones since we did the original version of this video. We'll have photos, we'll have images to share, and I'll quickly revisit the two Bob Joyce theory, because I have to make something clear, and but that will be very quick, because that's in the 21 coincidences video, and also the Bob Joyce Elvis factor. I have a new source that came about less than 2 weeks ago as I do this recording. Someone in the inner circle, and will comment on what they had to say, and we will read a little bit of exactly what they said. So be watching for that. We'll talk about some of the things Pastor Bob Joyce has said from the pulpit. He likes to have fun with this topic. One time somebody called something out in the sanctuary. We'll talk about that as well. And we'll talk about not only the denials that Bob has made from the pulpit, very well qualified, careful denials, but the more specific denial that he made to Spa Guy. Spa Guy, very popular Bob Joyce Elvis programmer here. Quickly, I'll hit the George Klein funeral again. Very quickly, we'll talk about the Elvis movie, which is a big hit with Austin and also the legendary Tom Hanks. mention the Bob Joyce albums that are on Spotify and on his website. And then we'll get to the verdict from the heart. Thousands of people have a feeling about this all over the world, but I'll talk about my gut feeling, why I feel, how I feel. Okay, the verdict. It's all coming up, and one thing I want to say to you, and I said this in our first edition of the verdict. Pastor Bob Joyce has my personal email. And he has all of my contact information. If he was unhappy with the videos, all you have to do is give me a Facebook Messenger call. We could set that up. And so I knew it was him. And if he wanted the videos down, I would take them down without any questions about it. I would do it. I have always said, obviously there are like 20 Facebook groups talking about Bob Joyce and Elvis. There's a ton of other videos. The picture videos get more hits, but I think when you lay it out like this, it's more powerful, and you have told me that you enjoyed that, and you like the picture videos too that others do, like JJB. We'll be talking about JJB, Jose, my friend. And but if Bob wanted the videos down, I would. But as I have said before in the comment section, as well as in the videos, programmers like myself have made it possible for Bob to preach all over the world, brought people into household of faith from all over the world. And as I have said in every video, they knew in 2011 when they started loading up videos of Pastor Bob preaching from the first church that he was at, with the stones behind him, the stone wall behind him. They knew they would get an incredible reaction, and they did. And it has only grown, but it has stayed contained. It has stayed contained. And so we're not trying to hurt anybody here. Let's get to some of your questions now, because you can be brilliant out there. You really can. Some people just come on. They don't look at the video. They come on to either make a snotty comment that's not helpful, or they just go to every video and they make the same comment. It is clear right away they haven't watched this video or any video. So I don't take those people too seriously. If it's respectful, I leave it. If it's not, I don't. Mike Sheely has always been a great guy. I'm very supportive. Mike wrote that someone who recently visited Bob's church noticed bodyguards and a very expensive sound system and very expensive instruments. I've heard this before. Yeah, I've heard this before from people that have visited the church that I used to talk to. And they talked about the presence of bodyguards, that they kind of fit in. They try to, they're friendly and what have you, but they're always keeping an eye on the people and keeping an eye on Pastor Bob Joyce, And in terms of the sound system, I mean, the church doesn't take an offering. I'm told that Pastor Bob says there's a box in the back, and you can put something in it if you want to. I believe that everyone, when we go to church, we should offer up gifts, because the Bible is clear that tithing, bring the whole tithe into the church, and that when we give our first fruits to God, He will open up the windows of heaven and pour us out a blessing. And that certainly does include financial blessings, because a church can't run on just prayer. There needs to be finances. And isn't it interesting that there seems to be no financial problems at Household of Faith? There you go. Dave Mitchell, another great friend of these videos, always encourages me to keep on going and says, TCB, taking care of business, by Bachman Turner Overdrive. I used to say Bachman when I was a rock and roll DJ for a long time. Then I realized Randy Bachman pronounces it Bachman. And of course, he was in the Guess Who, too. But thank you, Dave Mitchell. I really appreciate it. Many of you have said in the various videos over the years that Bob just does not look his age. He does not look like a guy who's 87 years old. You know, I just saw a video of, you can find this on Facebook, I bet, of 96-year-old Dick Van Dyke, who still drives a car. And he was nice enough. There were people waiting for him and wish him a happy Father's Day that was coming up. And he said, "Oh, is that coming up?" Yeah. And then he starts talking about, you know, I got this picture. This guy created a model of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, you know, the vehicle, the car. And he a model of Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, and he gave it to his son, and he sent me a picture, and he just thought it was really, really cool, you know. And people were beeping, and he was waving at them and stuff as he was talking to these guys. He asked them where they were from. 96 years old, lucid, looks great. Maybe some darkness around the eyes, but that's normal for his age. And was going to get in a beautiful car and drive away. So John Forsythe looked great in his 80s. Ernest Borgnine lived to 92 years old, and he still was portly and looked like the same Ernest Borgnine that I used to watch almost in McHale's Navy. So some people just look great. And when you have access to Botox, when you have access to any procedure around the eyes and what have you, people who have gone to the church say up close, he looks his age. He looks his age. His hands kind of look like that of someone who's in their 80s. And so this is just a debate that we can have forever. People that don't watch the videos come on and think they're being brilliant and say, oh, he doesn't look 87, so there's your whole theory down the drain. But many people, especially today with all the products and what have you and procedures, can look great for a lot longer and live a lot longer, you know. So, but I do hear about that. And as we get into the Bob Joyce, the two Bob Joyce theory, I'll cover that real quickly, because I believe there is a Bob Joyce that is 69 years old, going on 70 as I do this video. Someone pointed out that John Burroughs, well, first let me say this. John Burroughs is the name we believe that Elvis used when he went into the Witness Protection Program in 1977 for three valid reasons. Number one was that he was privy to some information he learned in Las Vegas on a mafia figure that the FBI, that the government very much wanted, and they wanted Elvis to testify against this guy. And this would require protection for Elvis and for his family. And it would require a new identity for Elvis. But there were two other reasons he would want to say yes to something like that. Number two was that he was really probably very near death. He was grossly overweight. He was addicted to pain medications. We learned about that way back in the Albert Goldman book. I've been looking into this and interested in this since the Gail Brewer book came out, Is Elvis Alive? And also the Albert Goldman book on Elvis, although he didn't deal with that part of the story. But he talked all about what Elvis went through in the 70s. He talked about how Dr. Nick, and this is talked about in the Elvis movie, basically made Elvis very reliant on injectable pain medication. He did the martial arts. He loved the martial arts, and I think there were injuries there caused him lifelong pain. And you know, you're going on stage. You got an active schedule, and of course, who wants to live in pain? You got to find a way out of it. And so Albert Goldman talked about that Elvis's body became like a human pincushion, and it was hard to find a piece of skin that hadn't been previously injected. That's in the Albert Goldman book on Elvis. He said a lot of things in that book. He wasn't an Elvis fan, but he was very thorough in the topics that he talked about. So Elvis needed to go somewhere. I've heard Argentina. I don't know for sure, but he would need to go somewhere for a very long time, and he would need to be weaned off the drugs. He would need to be put on a very strict diet. He would need to exercise and what have you. He would need a total makeover. Let's put it that way. He would need a total makeover and was gone for a long time. And when he did return to the United States, that's when a lot of Elvis sightings started to happen. And then in 1979, perhaps, there are those who feel that a masked singer by the name of Orion came on the scene, released an album called Reborn, and that Orion was really Elvis Presley. I have no idea if that's true, but look into it. Look into it. Listen to the voice. See what you think. So John Burroughs is the name that Elvis used, and he used it when he left the country. Had papers from the government. This is what we are saying is a possibility. And so John Burroughs is JB. Reverse the initials. You have BJ, Bob Joyce. I thought that was really, really good. We talked about, someone was commenting on the Nixon visit, that Elvis Presley just showed up at the White House. Albert Goldman talked about this. I think the name of the chapter is "The President Will See Mr. Presley." He just shows up at the front gate and says he's got a gift for President Nixon. And what's the gift? It's a gun. It's an antique gun. And of course, they checked it out, made sure there were no bullets and what have you before he got to visit with the president. And he was given a special badge because Elvis said that he really wanted to do something to combat drugs in America. The youth were falling prey to the drugs in America, and he wanted to do his part to stop it, his influence. Albert Goldman pointed out in the video, or excuse me, the photo taken with Nixon in the Oval Office, Elvis looked kind of high himself. But he did have a badge. We've talked about this in the comments section as well, and he took it very seriously. There were talks that some people, well after midnight, because Elvis was a definite night person who got up around 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Certain cars were pulled over for speeding by a blue Mercedes with a blue light on top. The Memphis Mafia were with the lead man. The lead man was Elvis Presley. The driver of the car would obviously be stunned, and Elvis would begin to talk, and they would say, "Aren't you Elvis Presley?" And he said, "Yes, but I'm also a special agent. I'm also an agent of the law. We have laws here in Memphis regarding speeding, and we would like to see those laws obeyed." He didn't have a ticket book, but he did give him a warning, you know. Must have been an incredible experience. Wouldn't you like to watch that on tape? He had a collection of badges, Elvis Presley, too. He was very, very into law enforcement. Lorraine talked about how Elvis would sweat a lot, and so does Bob Joyce. And I've heard this from other people that have visited the church. And obviously, as we watch Elvis, obviously in the movie we see in the beginning and for a long time he was very physical on stage, doing a song like Heartbreak Hotel or Hound Dog, or later on Suspicious Minds, what have you. Very, very physical, and he would do some karate moves and what have you, some martial arts. So of course you're going to sweat. But then as his career advanced and he started getting addicted to the injectable prescription pain medication, he would sweat even more. In the last concert that was filmed that he did, he was sweating profusely, and there was someone who tried to say, "Oh, he he was fine. He was fine. When he did Are You Lonesome Tonight? And he messed up the talking part of it. First of all, Elvis was always uncomfortable talking. Even in the Hawaii special, he kept it short. He was coherent in the Hawaii special and looked fantastic, but he was never really comfortable. And in the later concerts, when he would talk a lot, it could be really bad. He'd start rambling about the strangest things because he was high on medicine. You know, he was high on medicine, and it could be bad. There were some bad shows during that time that some people witnessed, but they always forgave Elvis. They forgave his heavier appearance. They loved Elvis Presley. And if he saw, this is something I've never said before in one of the videos that Albert Goldman talked about. If he saw the audience wasn't really with him because he was sloppy that night or what have you, he would find a grandma in like the one of the first two rows and call her to come to the edge of the stage, and he would take one of the rings from his fingers and he'd say, "You remind me so much of my grandma. I'd like you to have this." And he put the ring on her finger. He had him. That was all it took. He had them at that point. They were with him from then on in. But definitely in the later shows, Are You Lonesome Tonight? He's got cotton mouth, and but yet there came a moment in that concert, and if you've seen it, you know what I'm going to refer to. He sits down, and someone holds a mic in front of his face. He sits down at the piano, covered in sweat, and he plays and sings Unchained Melody. And it's like there was the old Elvis, because even though he was clumsy on stage, he was shy and making a lot of mistakes, he sang that song flawlessly. He was Elvis Presley, the greatest. And it was just an amazing moment, for him to hit the high notes. And he never lost the voice. He never lost the voice. Oh, by the way, Lorraine also talked about a familiar guitar at Household of Faith. And as I have said in earlier videos, including I think in the 21 Coincidences and the Elvis Factor, Bob Joyce Elvis Factor, someone, well, actually a group of people pooled their money and bought Bob Joyce the same guitar that was in Blue Hawaii. And when he opened it, his eyes lit up. Just one more of those coincidences, if that's the proper word. I don't think it really is anymore. Catherine said something that that other people have said. She says if he is preaching, and he's lying about who he is, he should not be preaching God's word. For the reasons I think I've already stated, Catherine, I just don't agree with that. I think, as I have said before, human beings are so arrogant, and I'm not talking about you, Catherine, but I'm talking about, they think that they can put God in a box. They think they can use God's word to do it. Use God's word to do it. Oh, God can't go back on his promises. He can change his mind. He can change his mind in terms of who he's going to save, who he's going to save from eternal separation from him. The Bible says that I will save who I want to save. I'll have mercy on who I want to have mercy on. God has not put himself in a box. If you read in the Old Testament, the portion where God is having basically almost a tantrum, it seems, with Moses and saying, "I wish I would have never created man," we see Moses trying to calm God down. But ultimately, God did what he wanted to do, and it wasn't good. It wasn't good for the people that had acted so wickedly, Now we live in the New Testament because God realized that man can't live up to the holiness of God that is so projected in the Old Testament, that we need a Savior from our sins. So I don't believe oh, God said this, so that means he can't do that. No, I don't believe that in the Bible. I'm not someone who believes that God accidentally or whatever put himself in a box that he's confined to this or that. Um, when he says he is faithful, I believe that's true. I believe that's true. So if we are faithful, if we have invited Christ into our hearts, this is not a video where we're going to go into that as much as we would in another video. But yeah, I believe in the blood of Christ covering a multitude of sins. Tammy, and there's several Tammys, some with I's at the end and some with Y's at the end. You're going to hear the name Tammy again. Tammy commented, and I've heard about this, that when Lisa Marie's son died, who could potentially be Bob Joyce's grandson, that Bob was not at Household of Faith for a while. Back then I looked to see what was going up, and there was a sermon that was posted that had the current date, that past Sunday, on it, but they could have simply just taken an older sermon from the new sanctuary and put a new date on it. That could be the case. I just don't know. But more than one person, Tammy, has talked about his absence when Lisa Marie's son, unfortunately, tragically passed away. Someone commented on President Trump saying at a rally, someone said the rally was in Tupelo, the one that is referred to, saying, oh, Elvis is here, he's over there. My initial reaction was if the president knew that Elvis was in the crowd in his disguise with sunglasses and a cap and what have you, and looking like Bob Joyce to a degree, he wouldn't out him. He wouldn't out him like that. You know, it would be a joke. Oh, yeah, look, there's Elvis over there, you know, that kind of thing. That would be my reaction. The groundskeeper, I've seen pictures of him. I don't think that's Bob Joyce at Graceland, the one who's in the back lawn, you know. I don't think so. Doesn't look to be Bob Joyce, but many people have the Kenny Rogers look that we'll talk about real quickly again. Another Tammy, well, let's talk about William real quick, talking about Bob Joyce's eyes being closer together than Elvis Presley. I talked to JJB Jose about that. He said Elvis had a nose job earlier, which made it seem that way, that it's more of an illusion than anything else. He deals with the scars and the veins and the facial structure and what have you. Jose didn't agree with that, William, but I have heard that comment as well. Another Tammy talked about Willina Hattie, who married a Robert Wayne Joyce. And I believe Robert Wayne Joyce, as I do this video, would be 69 going on 70 years old. But of course, the big thing is that when Elvis went to Germany, he was pictured with this young woman who looks very much like a young Willina. If Elvis was assigned to Germany, and of course he was, and by the way, Pastor Bob Joyce has shared from the pulpit that he served in the army in Germany. Just another amazing coincidence. He has shared that. But possibly Willina Hattie would have been in Germany because her father was in the military and stationed in Germany as well. But it was either Tammy or somebody else that says you think that that's Willina, but it's really Sigrid Schultz. Sigrid Schultz. And I didn't know what to do with that. So I had to contact JJB. You want to see all the JJB Bob Joyce Elvis videos here. He does beautiful editing and comments under the pictures and what have you. And excuse me. So what happens when you're basically live? I could have turned the mic pod down, slid the pot down, radio term. I could have done that. But when we talked about who we think is Walina Hattie with Bob Joyce, here's a Google photo. Still haven't learned how to edit, but I have Google Photos now. And you'll be seeing them in future videos, but I'm really going to try to sit down with my engineer, Red Bear, who you can see on Twitch, and you can follow his streaming. He's a gamer. Red Bear, I call him Dandy Andy. These are the pictures that I had, I think I had early on. They were given to me by someone other than JJB, but I didn't really have permission to use them. And they didn't want me to. So I was interested to see them, and I agreed. And then JJB and others put them up, so it made the point mute at that point. But this collection of pictures here, and you can find a much better, clearer copy online. You see Elvis Presley, who we think is a young Walina Hattie, who would eventually end up in Benton, Arkansas. We see Bob Joyce in the corner there with Walina, a much more recent picture. But those are some of the pictures, and there's others, of Elvis with this young girl who looks like a younger Walina Hattie, who would become Walina Joyce. So I said, Jose, what am I going to do? She says, this is Sigrid Schultz. You know anything about that? And he's so good. He was ready right away. He said, no, that's not Sigrid Schultz. This is Sigrid Schultz. Different woman. He's got the picture from the Germany days, and he's got the picture of how she looks today. Here's something I've never said before in one of the Elvis videos. One of the most recent comments I got on our first version of The Verdict, which is coming down tonight, one of, and you can always make the comment again in the new version here of The Verdict, one of the comments I got was that Sigrid Schultz was the person that I was looking at. And so he had pictures of her young and today, and then another person commented, I almost forgot what I was going to say, another person commented recently, I've never said this before, that Sigrid Schultz either has gone to Household of Faith numerous times or is a regular member of Household of Faith. Does anybody know? Can anyone confirm that? Can anybody confirm that for me? Is Sigrid Schultz someone who goes to Household of Faith in 2022 or has gone in the past? Can you tell me that? I'd love to know. But then Jose went even further. He's such a master at this. He does his homework, and he's interested in many different topics, but Bob Joyce, I guess, would be his number one topic, and does very, very well with his picture videos. You got to check him out. He sent me this photo right here. Look at that. The king of rock and roll in the front is Sigrid Schultz, and who is to the right shoulder of Sigrid Schultz but the very person that we think is Walina Hattie. That just blew me away. Coincidence after coincidence after coincidence. Look at that. Of course, Priscilla would win out when Bob went back to the States, and he would eventually marry Priscilla. But that is amazing, amazing stuff right now. Right there. Just an amazing thing. And one more question that was recently posed. If Bob Joyce isn't Elvis, why do people stand in line to take pictures? Well, once I thought about that, didn't surprise me at all once I thought about that. People come from around the world to Household of Faith, and they're going to want a picture during the coffee and cake hour. They're going to want that. so they stand in line for pictures. But if this was just your normal guy preaching in Benton, Arkansas, it's not like it's Joel Osteen, he would have never been found, really. He would have had, somewhat of a following on YouTube, I suppose. But if he didn't look like Elvis and he didn't sound like Elvis, and they wouldn't have been coming from all over the world. That wouldn't have happened, and there wouldn't have been a big line for pictures. It would have been the same people that came to the church every week, and that's it. That's it, So there you go. There is that. The two Bob Joyce theory is something that I have talked about since 2019. I'm going to rush through this because we talk about it in the 21 coincidences. I do have Google Photos now for a clearer picture. First one is still a little foggy, but I believe in the two Bob Joyce theory. I didn't when I first started doing the videos. Someone said to me, there are two Bob Joyces, you should look into that. And I thought, well, I knew I should have never gotten involved in this topic. This is the tinfoil hat crowd. It's going to be crazy, crazy, crazy. But nevertheless, I looked into it. And when I did, I was absolutely amazed at what I was finding, the images that I was finding and some comments that I was finding. Absolutely amazed. There's a birth certificate. You can find it. We have had it up in previous videos. It's up in one of the Elvis groups of Robert Wayne Joyce marrying Lena Hattie, and in Arkansas, and that would make Robert Wayne, who I believe there are young pictures of him online. He's got a brown beard and brown hair, dark brown beard, kind of reddish brown, and obviously, when people say, well, look, see, your theory's got to be wrong because that's not Elvis Presley. Of course it's not Elvis Presley. Elvis was being Elvis at that point. He had been Elvis for a long time. He was the king of rock and roll. Obviously, that guy with the brown beard and brown hair is not Elvis Presley. You got to think about what you're saying there. I believe it's Robert Wayne Joyce. That is my guess. That is the possibility I propose. And could this be Robert Wayne Joyce, grown up, a man in his 60s? Got a very stern look there, doesn't he? There's no way that is Bob Joyce, Pastor Bob Joyce, who currently preaches at Household of Faith in Benton, Arkansas. I just don't believe that it is. I see a little flickering going on, and when I did the first take of this, I got 15 minutes in and the screen went blank. I really hope that doesn't happen. I hope we get through this because it's already well into the night, and that's so typical for me. Another example of someone who I think may be Robert Wayne Joyce, although he looks a little different, is this man here next to Elvis. I don't think that is Bob Joyce, the current pastor of Household of Faith. He looks like a man who just swallowed the canary, He's got a devilish look to him. Is that Robert Wayne Joyce? I don't know for sure, but I know it's not Bob Joyce who preaches every Sunday. That's my personal opinion. Another picture of who I think may be Robert Wayne Joyce right here. Again, not the man who preaches at Household of Faith every Sunday. Yeah, Bob has had a lot of fun with the topic himself from the sanctuary from time to time. He has talked about the fact that he used to dance with his hips, I'm getting too old. Now I dance with my shoulders. Guy shows up dressed as Rod Stewart, spiky hair. At the end of the service, after they pray, Bob stands right in front of him and says, I'm going to remember you. I used to have a gold jacket once, and in 1957 and other times, Bob Joyce had a beautiful gold jacket. Or I should say, no, that's not correct. Elvis Presley had a beautiful gold jacket on with black pants as he did his concert. One time, Bob sang a beautiful song. When he stopped, someone in the congregation yelled out, "Thank you, Elvis. Thank you, Elvis." I made note of that when I saw it in the video, in my next video that I did, and it was quickly edited out. Once Bob stopped singing, that was it. The video ended. So there's that. All the denials. Bob said I should have covered this before in one of his videos, but I'm Bob Joyce. That's who I am. Bob Joyce. People say I look like this one and that one. He didn't mention Elvis Presley, but I'm Bob Joyce. That's who I am. The most specific denial came when Spa Guy came a knocking at his door, and Bob Joyce, who had apparently been taking a nap, answered. Bob Joyce was recording, but he held the camera down, and Bob did not want to be filmed. I think he was disheveled, but also he didn't want to deal with Spa Guy, but you have to get through it. So at some point, Spa Guy, who was so nervous, he actually answered the question for him. He said, "You're not Elvis, right? You're not Elvis." And Bob said, "No, no, no." And it seems like, I wish I could have seen his face, but it seems like he was unhappy that he had just said that. And he felt he needed to say more. And he said, "The Lord gave me dreams to reach the world. The Lord gave me dreams to reach the world." And that is what the perception of him being Elvis Presley has done. He has well over 100,000 people that watch him from all corners of the world. And so I think they wanted it to be a contained reaction, and that is what has happened. That's what has happened. But it is an amazing story. If all this that we talk about, even if all the possibilities I present to you, all the coincidences, all the verifiable facts, and what have you, if all of it isn't true, it is still an amazing story. One that somebody would want to cover. Here's a guy, that looks and sounds like him, etc., etc. And there's all these other coincidences, but nobody shows up and wants to do that story. 2020 isn't knocking at the door, etc., etc. That is very, very odd, isn't it? Very odd. This whole thing is just crazy. I talked about a new source. The new source does not consider themselves a source. They were just nice enough to answer me. They're in the inner circle. They're in the inner circle. I wasn't clear about that last time, but they're in the inner circle. They would know Bob Joyce. They would. They gave me a couple of quotes, and I'm being very careful here because I never reveal sources. But one quote was, "Pastor Bob is not Elvis. He never has been or will be, not literally or metaphorically." That was one quote. And then that person said, "Much of what you see is made up. Many pics, videos are totally fabricated or photoshopped." They did admit that Pastor Bob does sound very much like Elvis Presley. And how could you not say that? In terms of the videos being doctored, photoshopped, completely made up, it didn't really ring true in my spirit. That's all I can tell you. It did not sound truthful to me. Going to talk about the George Klein funeral. That was a house video from either the temple or a big hall that they rented for George's funeral. George was the Memphis disc jockey who Elvis once said called him his best friend, gave him a Cadillac. We talk about that on the other videos. I don't have to go into the whole story here. Bob, I should say George, passes away, and the big question is Bob Joyce going to go to this funeral? What would be stage right to the left of the church, if your vantage point is from the back, In the first row is the back of the head of a man who looks very much like Bob Joyce, and next to him is a man who looks very much like Matt Joyce, who I guess I would believe would be no real relation to Bob Joyce at all, but someone who went to the Benton nightclub, and Matt Joyce became an Elvis impersonator. It's crazier and crazier. Um, one row back, but further down the row from Bob Joyce is Priscilla Presley. She loved George, and she wanted to be there, but she didn't want to speak. But the rabbi called her up to speak. She reluctantly did, and she made some very nice comments. When she comes down to go back to her seat, she passes the man we think is Bob Joyce, and she puts her hand on his shoulder as she goes by. I don't believe that's doctored, Photoshop, fake. It's the real deal. And Judy Smith also got a view of that from the pew. She was recording, and she got a view of that happening. Later on, they were told at the graveside ceremony, she tried to film there. They said, oh, no, there'll be no video here. Absolutely no video here. So what are the odds of the very guy that I and others think is Bob Joyce being touched on the shoulder? There's like, I don't know, 500 people there. The very guy that I think is Bob Joyce, of Priscilla touching him on the shoulder as she walks by him. What are the mathematical odds of that? You know, absolutely amazing. Noticing that got me in the Daily Star in the UK twice. I think the video is still up on the Daily Star website. So I think that much of what we see is not altered. And in terms of a lot of what I speak about possibilities, coincidences, and some facts that are verifiable. You know the old saying, where there's smoke, there's fire, and there's just too many coincidences, it seems. But we'll give our final conclusions. The Bob Joyce albums, yeah, they're on Spotify. Listen to them. Who does it sound like? Does it sound like a man in his 60s singing? Or a man in his 80s singing? 70s maybe? Whenever they were recorded? I don't know. You tell me who that sounds like. So finally we come to the verdict. The verdict. And as I have said before, I'm one juror. Maybe I'm almost close to being a hung jury because I have reservations. I do. Why would people in the inner circle deny who Bob Joyce is if he was somebody else and they very well know it? For all the reasons that I've stated. Spa Guy wasn't going to get an exclusive on the porch. You go through the witness protection program. I don't think he's in it anymore, by the way. I think at some point around 2010, 2011, maybe, he went back to bodyguards and said, I'm going to preach the word, and they're going to see me preach it on the internet, and that's just the way it's going to be. So back to the bodyguards, and things have changed. You know, the mafia is not what they once were and what have you. Not as prevalent as they were, certainly around the time when Colonel Parker had Elvis at the International Hotel. Let me quickly talk about the movie before we do the verdict. It was just wonderful. Have you seen it? Many Elvis fans, of course, have seen it. Tom Hanks as Colonel Parker is terrific in his fat suit. They show what a charlatan he could be, but also he had a talent. But Elvis could never tour internationally because the Colonel had no passport. He was a former carnival barker. You know, he was great at creating illusion, but he also had a talent for making Elvis a huge star and getting him noticed and fighting for Elvis and what have you. And he was great at marketing merchandise and what have you. And when Elvis tries to get rid of him, the Colonel is going to sue him for a bunch of money. But Yeah, see the movie. It's powerful. Austin does a wonderful job. He doesn't particularly look like Elvis that much, but sometimes he does, you know, wearing those glasses in the later days and stuff like that. He's just, you know, possibly an Oscar winning performance. And maybe Tom Hanks will certainly be nominated for Best Supporting Actor. And they don't deal, of course, with Elvis faking his death or anything like that. But, you know, when I look at the way the man looks, the way he sounds, those Spotify albums are are not that of an older pastor from Benton, Arkansas, but it sounds very much like a young Elvis Presley, a younger Elvis Presley, perhaps. Although sometimes when I hear Bob in the Sanctuary in more recent times singing "How Great Thou Art," I hear Elvis coming through. I hear Elvis coming through. Um, Obviously, the George Klein funeral was a big thing. Someone asked about Ronnie Tut's, someone who was also close to Elvis, his memorial service. Anybody know if there were any Bob Joyce sightings at Ronnie Tut's service? Let me know in the comment section. When I think about Willina appearing to be in Germany, strong possibility, I guess we can say, and now being in Benton, Arkansas. Are they married, Bob and Willina? I don't know. I don't know that. I can't talk about what I don't know. Or are they just good friends, you know, that stayed friends throughout the years? Did there come a time when Bob needed a new identity? Early on, someone told me that Robert Wayne Joyce was a pastor, but he wanted to retire, so Bob just slipped into the role. I've been told that both of them have been at the church. It's always the Bob Joyce that we think is Elvis that preaches, that's on camera. But someone told me they saw uh, Pastor Bob preach, and then later at a luncheon, they saw, instead of him, they saw what we would believe is Robert Wayne Joyce. She couldn't believe it was a different guy. It was a different guy. And everybody in the church, it was normal for them. It was normal for them. This is just an incredible story that will probably be filmed into a movie when I'm dead. Lots of people have said that Bob is writing a book, but it won't be released till he's dead. Vernon Presley has said the details of the Elvis funeral won't be released to 2028, when they presumed that Elvis would be dead, I believe. People like Tanya Tucker and Jeannie C. Riley, the late Jeannie C. Riley, said publicly that they did not believe that was Elvis in the coffin, that Elvis was alive. They said that way back in the day in the 70s. And Bill Bixby did 3 specials on it and what have you. There's just so much material. Study commissioned on whether Elvis faked his death and what have you. There's just so much material out there. But when I put it all together, I look at the Benton, Arkansas nightclub video where Matt Joyce is doing a gig and has Daddy come up and sit with him, and he wants Daddy to sing American Trilogy. Daddy doesn't want to sing American Trilogy. Everybody's taking pictures. He knows they're taking video too. He knows where it's going to end up, and he tries to keep tossing it back to Matt. He's so nervous he's forgetting lyrics, and Matt helps feed him some of the lyrics. It's not a song that if he were Elvis, he'd be singing every day anymore. But then there comes the end of the video when he has to go to full voice for the end of American Trilogy. And when he does, because he doesn't do that very often anymore, to me, I was hearing Elvis Presley. The verdict, and I'm just one juror, so it's my personal opinion, is that Bob Joyce is Elvis Presley. And as I said before, if he's not, it is still the most amazing set of coincidences and facts that I've ever known in my lifetime. What do you think? I'd love to hear your comments. Watch the video first. subscribe, like. I appreciate all the likes. If you have something critical to say, just be respectful. JackTheFairGuy@gmail.com is my personal email. If you have some information for me, something you want to share, but you don't want to put it in the comments section, say if you knew that Sigrid does go to Household of Faith, or anything else you want to share, JackTheFairGuy, F-A-I-R, JackTheFairGuy@gmail.com. Otherwise, just comment here, right here in the comment section, or sectional, like a couch, our virtual couch at the Virtual Church of the Disillusioned. Thanks again for all the people that have brought us to close to 1,500 subscribers now. Tell your friends about the video, and more to come. More to come. Big God bless you. We'll talk to you real soon. Bye-bye.